Every human being born on planet Earth has the inherent right to food, water, shelter, healthcare, and education. You are tuned into the inaugural SREHUP in the Spotlight podcast, and by following SREHUP in the Spotlight, you will be able to share our incredible journey with us as we transform how American society treats and deals with the homeless in America so that we can end this problem permanently. SREHUP is the student-run emergency housing unit of Philadelphia, an organization that gets men off the streets and into shelter during the emergency cold months in Philadelphia, December through April. SREHUP was founded by Executive Director Stephanie Senna, from whom you will hear shortly. My name is Marcus Goldman. I am a SREHUP board member. SREHUP will become the first organization on the East Coast to house homeless humans and their pets while we work to get them into permanent housing. As you share our journey with us, you will find out how we're going to revolutionize getting our homeless friends and neighbors into permanent housing. We also want you to participate in our journey with us, and throughout the podcast, you will find out how. I am so excited to introduce Stephanie Senna, the founder and executive director of SREHUP. This is the inaugural podcast of SREHUP in the Spotlight, and we are going to get background on the board members. The first person we're going to talk to and find out about is the founder of SREHUP, the CEO, Stephanie Senna. Stephanie, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved with all of this, how the shelter came to be, and what has happened over the last 6 years.
I started SREHUP in 2011. It was an idea that came to me because I'd been teaching at Villanova since 2003, and I was teaching my students a lot about issues of global poverty. My students were learning about poverty wide scale for the first time. These are students who had gone to suburban high schools, and now they were going to suburban university, and they'd lived very isolated lives and had not had much exposure to people who were different than them or outside of their socioeconomic status. But they were concerned about what they were learning about, and they were depressed and anxious and wanted to make a difference. So I took their energy and their excitement and I said, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. Let's get to work in our own backyard, helping our neighbors who are in need. I heard about a shelter run by Harvard students and I said, why don't we do this in Philly? So I brought the idea to my Villanova students and said, let's open up a homeless shelter in Philadelphia and house our vulnerable neighbors. My students were so excited. The first thing we did was we went to Harvard over spring break so that they could see what it looks like to run a shelter. And what we saw was really beautiful. Students sitting and having dinner with guests, and this communication between the people who are experiencing homelessness and the students was really beautiful and I think impactful for both the students and the guests. So at the end of the week in the shelter, we met at a coffee shop in Boston and said, this is amazing, let's do this in Philly. So we came back to Philadelphia and got to work opening up a shelter. It started to get a lot of media attention and soon other universities were calling and saying that they wanted to participate. So we grew from just a group of excited Villanova students to students at Penn and Drexel and Swarthmore and Temple, PCOM, and Jefferson, all over the Philadelphia region. So there's these university chapters now at 8 different universities, and these students all work toward the same shelter. They take shifts, they fundraise, they problem solve, they create initiatives and ideas for working with our guests, and we take these people who are vulnerable on the streets and we bring them into our shelter. They stay with us through the winter and we work with them to assess their needs and link them to the services they need to get back on their feet. We provide them with medical care and social workers, wraparound services, and then we close every year in April, and our mission is to have our guests move into something permanent by the time we close in April. So that's been going on for 6 years now, and it's really exciting. We've been growing, getting a lot of support, a lot of volunteers. Our lives have changed. The lives of me, my board, my volunteers, and the lives of the people at the shelter. Through this community, we've all grown and learned and loved together. But we're currently going into our 7th season, and this is going to be our most exciting season yet because we're starting a new initiative. We've experienced over 6 years, we've seen that people who are experiencing homelessness with their pets are turned away from shelter because most shelters operate in churches, and the churches won't let the pets in the door. So what we've seen is that about 130 people are dying on the streets in Philadelphia every year who are experiencing homelessness, many of them with their pets, and they're dying from things that are preventable, like hypothermia. And I say we cannot allow that. We cannot be comfortable when our neighbors are dying on the streets. So this year, our 7th shelter season, we're rolling up our sleeves and getting to work, opening up the first shelter in Philadelphia to house both people and their pets. So that's really generated a lot of excitement. We're also going to be a sustainable shelter. We're going to have a greenhouse. We're going to have solar panels on the roof. We're going to have a Theater of the Oppressed, a production every year that includes both our guests and our students. We'll come together and we'll put on a play for the whole community. I think once a year. It'll be really spectacular. But this shelter is going to be completely innovative and I think a model for other cities throughout the country. And I'm really excited to get to work with that, with our volunteers and our board. And even some of the past guests who've transitioned out of homelessness will be helping us accomplish our goals. So it's going to be a really exciting year for us.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for not only sharing a bit of information about yourself, but also about the history of SREHUP. In future podcasts, we will get to know the SREHUP executive board members. They are Ellery Hillard, Chris Funari, Sam Crawford, Kate Morrison, and myself. You will also learn about the people who are so fundamental in helping keep the SREHUP dream alive with generous donations. We are extremely grateful for these donations, and you will learn more about who they are in the next podcast. You can follow SREHUP at SREHUP.org or SREHUP on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Here's Executive Board Member Kate Morrison with a list of upcoming SREHUP events you want to know about.
What's happening in SREHUP's world? On November 24th, it's the 3rd annual Black Friday Give Back at Beer Love. A portion of all proceeds will benefit SREHUP. Beer Love is a Philly favorite at 714 South 4th Street. What better way to spend your holiday weekend than drinking beer for a good cause? Our opening day for our regular shelter season is on December 1st at United for Christ Ministries. We thank United for Christ Ministries from the bottom of our hearts for this new partnership and look forward to a successful season sheltering our neighbors in need. On December 1st, there is also a sock drop and shop vendors event benefiting SREHUP. This will take place at the Ben Salem Senior Citizens Association at 1850 Byberry Road in Ben Salem. And finally, on Thursday, December 14th, there will be a benefit show for SREHUP at the Barbary in Philly. The featured bands will be Rachel Andy, Cowboy Bohemian, and my band, Betty Iron Thumbs. Join us for a night of indie rock and maybe some holiday cheer at 951 Frankfurt Ave in Philly. For more information on any of these events, visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/SREHUP.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the inaugural SREHUP in the Spotlight podcast. We will keep the information flowing on a weekly basis. You will get to know the staff. You will get to know the board members. You will get to know the shelter. You will get to know Philadelphia. And you will get to know how we're going to revolutionize getting the homeless into permanent shelter and getting them off the streets, as everybody has the inherent right to food, shelter, water, health care, and education. My name is Marcus Goldman. I am a member of the Executive SREHUP Board, and I thank you so much for listening to the inaugural podcast of SREHUP in the Spotlight. We look forward to you sharing our experience with us in the future. Have an outstanding day.